Hello and good morning friends, welcome to the CEC EduSet live lecture. Dear friends, in today's session we would be continuing with our series on marketing management. We would be discussing on channels for business markets as well as logistics and physical distribution, channel control and conflict, as well as on wholesaling and retailing. And for this discussion, we have once again with us in our studios Dr. Garima Gupta. Dr. Garima Gupta is Associate Professor in Faculty of Management Studies, Delhi University. So let's welcome our guest, Dr. Garima Gupta, and let's try to grab in detail on the topics which have already been told to you. Hello ma'am, welcome to the EduSet lecture.
Thank you ma'am. Very good morning students. So let us have a discussion on channels for business markets, logistics and physical distribution, and then we would be talking at length about wholesaling and retailing. If you recall, we had discussed in the last session about the channels for consumer markets, where we have addressed the various kind of options which are available for the marketeers. Like there could be a direct channel leading from the manufacturers to the consumers. There could be a channel where one would be having the intermediaries in between, and those intermediaries may be in the form of either the wholesalers, retailers or some agents. Let us today understand the extent to which the channels for the business markets are different from the channels that are used in the consumer markets. In that line, if you see students, we again have a 0 level, 1 level, 2 level and a 3 level channel. Now if you look at the 0 level channel chain, you would find that this is, as in case of consumer markets, a direct channel which is happening between the manufacturers and the industrial customers. Now we need to understand that the channels for B2B market are the ones where you are catering to the end user, where the end user is not the ultimate consumer. That is, the person is not buying, or the household is not buying for the ultimate consumption, rather for the resale purposes. So here we have termed our consumer or the customer as the industrial customer, because he is not strictly consuming any goods for ultimate consumption. In the 1 level channel of your distribution, you would find that the manufacturer would be first of all getting in touch with the industrial distributor, and then the industrial distributor would be passing on the goods to the industrial customer. So the channel comprises of one member in between, and therefore we say that this is 1 level channel of the distribution. In the 2 level channel of distribution, which is again a popularly used channel, we find that there is a manufacturer. The manufacturer is going to pass on the goods to the manufacturer's representative, or can follow a indirect route also by passing it on to the industrial distributors, and from the industrial distributors or the manufacturer's representative, the goods would be passed on to the industrial customer. The last level, that is the 3rd level or a 3 level channel of distribution, comprises of a manufacturer's sales branch. So the manufacturer sales branch can either directly hand over the goods to the industrial customer, or can again rope in the industrial distributor, so that the goods would be passing on between 2 channel members, from manufacturer to manufacturer sales branch, and then from the sales branch to the industrial distributor, who would then pass it on to the industrial customer. Now while we are deciding as to what all channel alternatives we have, and whether one should go for a 0 level channel or a 1 level or a 2 level channel, and what kind of communication would then be going on between the channel members, in order to make a decision with respect to which particular channel to rope in for passing on your goods till the end, whether it is the consumer market or a business market, there are 2 main criterion which needs to be followed. The first one is the economic criteria, that is, I have to take into consideration the fact that moving my goods and services through the channel members would entail some cost, and I therefore as a marketer should be choosing those channel partners and that kind of a channel where I would be able to minimize my cost, because otherwise if I spend a lot of money in making my goods pass through the channel members, the ultimate cost of the good is going to go up. So the economic criteria says that one has to take into account the cost factor. The second factor which needs to be attended to is the control and the adaptive criteria, which means the extent to which the manufacturer would like to have the control of the channel partners in his hands, and to what extent he is adaptive to the need set of the channel members, the objectives of the channel members, and to what extent the movement of the goods within the system can be adjusted given the fact that there could be n number of changes happening inside the organization or outside the organization. So, depending on these two broad criterion plus some other factors that we have already addressed under the channels for the consumer markets, like the product considerations or the manufacturers or the organizations considerations or the middlemen considerations. These are also the factors which go in making a final decision as to what should be the channel members and what should be the channel length and size. After doing this, one also has to closely watch for the channel management decisions, and these management decisions pertain to the broad management of the channel members, like who to select, how to motivate them, how to compensate them, how to train them in a proper manner. So, let us now address all these questions one by one. So, the first aspect which one needs to take into consideration at the time of managing the channel decisions relate to selecting the channel members. Now, I have already told you that the selection of the channel members is broadly based on certain influencing factors. That is, I have to take into consideration the fact what kind of product I am into. So, if the product requires say demonstration, I would have to rope in a channel member that would be able to provide that kind of a demonstration, or the product is of perishable nature. So, I need to take into account the fact that the goods should have a shorter length of the channel, so that before the product gets contaminated, it should reach the hands of the consumers. Along with the factors that we have already taken into account, there are certain factors which one needs to take into account at the time of choosing a specific channel member. Say for example, any wholesaler or any retailer or agent or a distributor. So, let's say I would be basically depending on some sort of an information which can give me an idea as to what is the strength of those channel members, what is the size of those channel members, what is their network, what is their past experience, what is their credit standing, and so on and so forth. So, I would be procuring some information about the channel members to be sure that yes, they are the right people who would be handling my goods and services in the right manner. Second comes in the training and the motivation of the channel members. We also understand that it at times becomes very important that we keep on motivating and boosting the morale of the channel members, because this is basically the people or the intermediaries who would be pushing our products across the consumers, be it the industrial customer or the ultimate consumer. So, let's say we have to provide them due training so that there is no flaw in the system and the goods and services can smoothly move across the channel cycle. We also need to motivate them, and here the motivation could either be in the form of the financial motivations or the non-financial motivations. At times we have also seen that the marketeers or the manufacturers, they also do certain kind of things like encouraging them in the form of giving them a targets and linking their targets to their actual performance. So, let's say they are provided extra commissions, concessions, discounts and things like these in order to boost up their morale, that they have to stretch and they have to perform their best. And if they meet the targets or they supersede their target, they would be further rewarded in the form of various other, say, monetary and the non-monetary incentives. So, these kind of initiatives ensure that the channel members feel motivated at all points of time, and they also ensure that the goods pass on the hands in a proper manner. We also have to evaluate the performance of the channel members in a periodic manner or on a periodic basis, so that we know what are the fail points, what are the problem areas, and then proper guidance and proper training can be given to those channel members to deal with those problem areas which probably may be creating some sort of a hindrances in smooth flow of goods and services. At times, this may also require students to modify our existing channel systems or to redesign our existing channel systems. So, we say we have to modify the arrangements to suit the requirements of probably the customer at times or probably the manufacturer at times. But this has to be taken into account that working in unison with the channel members is something which is very important for the manufacturer, especially because there are certain cases and there are certain industries where it is not possible for the manufacturer for any reason whatsoever to deal directly with the customer. We have got multiple options and one has to provide all these multiple options to the customer in order to avail those goods and services. So, at times we find that roping in the intermediaries and getting the goods and services passed through these middlemen or the intermediaries becomes the need of the hour. Let us now understand what could be the logistics and the distribution of all these things that we have already discussed. Now, when we talk about logistics and physical distribution, we would be talking about aspects like supply chain, logistics and physical distribution. So, when we talk about supply chain, by this we mean that there is a complete sequence of suppliers that contribute to creating a good or service and deliver it to the business users or the final consumer. So, we say you have to track the entire sequence and the entire network, that is right from the suppliers the goods are going to reach first of all the manufacturer, and then the manufacturer is going to do some value addition to those and then has to pass it on to the consumer. Now, if we do not maintain a proper supply chain, we do not have a proper system where the raw material and say the spare parts or any such thing is made available to the manufacturer then cannot make a value addition to those things and can make it reach to the consumers well in time. So, this is a complete, you can say, the length of the cycle, both forward as well as backwards, and the things have to be integrated at both the ends, the forward end also and the backward end also. So, when it comes to the backward end, we are looking towards the suppliers and the vendors. So, all those people backwards from the manufacturers to the suppliers and to the vendors, this change is known as, or this sequence of the activities which are performed is known as the supply chain. Coming to the logistic part of it, now we say we have to control the flow, or you can say the movement of the goods and information among the members of the supply chain. So, whatever is the flow of goods or the flow of information from the suppliers and the vendors to the manufacturers would be handled through the logistics, and therefore often you would have heard about how the e-commerce companies like Flipkart manage their logistics, so that once you place an order online, it ensures that within 2-3 days of the delivery period, the goods that you have placed an order for are reaching your doorstep. So, it's there are certain logistics. So, they get in touch with the suppliers who would be supplying them with those items, and then those items from their end would be reaching out to the consumers, would be provided to the consumers. The third is the physical distribution. Now, once it reaches your place, that is the manufacturer's place, from the manufacturer's place it has to now go to the place of its consumption. So, all the activities which are aimed at efficiently moving the finished good from the production end or the production line to the ultimate consumer, whether it is the ultimate consumer, the consumer buyer or the industrial buyer, all those activities form the part of physical distribution system. Now, let us understand, when we talk about market logistic decisions related to all these aspects, the market related logistic decisions revolve around one, the order processing. Now, we say one has to frequently place in the order. So, it's say the moment I find that yes, I need these many units of the raw material or the quantity of the item in order to produce my goods, or I need to, as at the end of the manufacturer, I need to have these many units of the finished product because there could be a demand for the same arising from the consumer's end. I have to keep track of my order. So, you would say what is order processing then? The order processing would include the order entry, in which the order is actually entered into the company's information system. It also includes order handling, which involves locating, assembling and moving products into the distribution, and finally delivering that order into the hands of the consumers. The second decisional area which is involved pertains to warehousing. Warehousing, simply put, is the place, the warehouse is a place where the goods would be stored until they are demanded by the consumers. So, from the point of view of market logistics, we are talking about the warehouses which would be used to stock the goods. So, say there are the distribution centers where you would be receiving the goods from the supplier, doing some value addition to them, stocking them there till you receive a final order for those goods from the individual consumer's end. We also have to manage the inventory, and neither there should be a shortfall of the inventory so that you are in a position where the consumers ask for a product and you do not have the supply of the same, nor you should be having an excess inventory of the items which would unnecessarily increase or enhance your holding cost and the related associated risk with it. So, when we talk about inventory management, we have to ensure that there is an optimal quantity that is maintained in with the manufacturer at all times. So, one has to ensure that a company neither runs out of the manufacturing components or the finished goods, nor incurs the expense and risk of carrying the unnecessarily or unsought or say the excessive inventory of these items at any point of time. So, if you want to cut down on your holding cost unnecessarily, and at the same time you have to ensure that the goods, whenever there is a demand being generated for them, are available to be supplied to the consumers, you have to go in for inventory management. And there all the principles related to working your economic order quantity comes into play. Then comes into the decision making is the fourth component, which relates to the transportation aspect. We say when we talk about transportation, we say which should be the mode. So, basically the method or the mode that a company would be using or utilizing in order to move the products through the domestic and the global channels are the decision areas related to transportation. And we know that there are basically the three primary modes of transportation, where we talk about air, water and the road. Now, when we go in for a decision related to transportation, one has to take a stock of what are the advantages and what are the limitations associated with various modes of transportation. So, if we see at a snapshot, one can decide on which particular mode and which particular transport to use depending on, say, I decide 5 basic parameters, 5 important parameters, and then I would be gauging the transport modes on these 5 parameters to assess as to which transport method would turn out to be better, and therefore I should be going ahead with it in terms of distribution aspect. Now, when I talk about, say, the parameters, like you see the parameters which are being listed here are, say, the speed, dependability in meeting the schedules, frequency of shipments, availability in different locations, flexibility in handling and cost. And what we have taken as the comparison are the 4 modes. That is, if I make a decision to move my goods taking the help of truck, that is the land mode, what would be the performance on the various decision parameters? If I choose railways, what is going to happen? If I choose water, what is going to happen? And if I use airways, what is going to happen? So, if we take, say, for example, speed, we find that airways is going to turn out to be very fast preposition. But in case I want to move through railways, the movement would be little slow in comparison to what I can achieve through airways. Similarly, when it comes to the cost may turn out to be very high if I choose a mode like air. It would similarly be high if I choose truck, but I would be able to manage my cost if I choose the railways. So, if the railways is giving you one average in terms of maintaining the speed. It is giving you a better kind of a preposition if I compare the cost of, say, the land, air and water simultaneously. So depending on the key parameters that you can compromise on, or which you consider are very important for ensuring a good movement of or good flow of your goods and services from your end to the customer end, one has to go in for the choice of the mode of transport. Let us now understand what we know by the channel integration. Now, when we talk about channel integration, conventionally we used to have a system where the manufacturers and the wholesalers and the retailers, that is all the members in the channel, they used to be the independent parties, the independent bodies. So, say the manufacturer used to get in touch with the wholesaler would contact the retailer, and the retailer is going to get in touch with the ultimate consumers. Now, what used to happen was there could be conflicts at different levels. Now, recently or in the recent time, we have come up with more integrated systems which we call as the vertical marketing system. So, as you see, what happens in case of the vertical marketing system, the manufacturer, wholesaler and retailer, they work in unison, they work as a team. So, there is one control, or you can say there is one captain of the team, and that captain of the team is going to ensure that the entire channel integration provides you with those kind of advantages which are there by working as a team. So, all those conflicts and all those kind of issues which were there in the conventional marketing system could be resolved through the vertical marketing system. So, what is happening? There is a captain, or there is a, say, franchise, or there is a owner, and then he is working in unison with the other kind of players and the other kind of the intermediaries, and they all together are serving to the ultimate consumers. So, these kind of channel integrations are more prevalent these days. Now, we know that there could be, as in case of the conventional system, there could have been the instances where the conflict takes place at multiple levels, that is between the manufacturer and the wholesaler, wholesaler and another wholesaler, wholesaler and the retailer, retailer and another retailer. So, we would say if one has to understand that there are multiple parties and the multiple groups involved and the multiple members involved, in fact, in the channel or in the flow of goods from the, say, the manufacturer's end to the consumer's end, there is bound to be some conflict that can arise at any point of time. So, let us understand what could be the nature of the conflict which would emerge. So, we would say these conflict types could be either the horizontal conflict, where the conflict generally occurs between the firms at the same level of the distribution, that is the wholesaler and the wholesaler, retailer and the retailer. When we talk about vertical conflict, this is something, say, the difference which emerges, or the difference of opinion which emerges at different levels of the same channel, which means that this is a conflict which would be typically occurring between the producer and the wholesaler, or the producer and the retailer. Whereas in the multi-channel levels, there could be a conflict there could occur between the two or more channels which are selling to the same market. Now, we know, students, these days we are into multi-channel marketing, where the marketeers and the manufacturers are trying to tap multiple channels for the same product. If here we want to understand the concept of multi-channel marketing, one can take the example of Eureka Forbes. So, it's a Eureka Forbes is into multiple kind of products also, like they have their vacuum cleaners also, they have their air purifiers, water purifiers, security systems. So, we say they are into multiple products, and for each of the product they also have the multi-channel kind of a system, multi-channel distribution system. Like if you want to go in for, say, Eureka Forbes product, you can either get the product, they have a distribution channel where there are industrial distributors who are catering to the industrial consumers. You can also order online, they have their purchasing method available for the consumers also. You can also contact them through the franchisee, or you can also contact them directly. So, it's a not only they are multiple product, but they are also multi-channel distribution system kind of a company. So, these days we are finding that not only the companies, not only the manufacturers are dealing into multiple products, but they are also trying to tap multiple channels for distributing their products to the different kind of users or the consumers, whether they are for the ultimate consumers or for the industrial buyers. Now, students, in the subsequent session, we would learn more about the wholesalers, the kind of wholesalers, and we would also take the discussion forward to retailing. Thank Okay, students, so now we would understand about wholesaling. Now, before starting with what the wholesaling is, one needs to understand as to who is a wholesaler. So, a person who is selling to the retailers, that is, he is not getting in touch with the ultimate user directly, is known as a wholesaler. So, we say this is then a distribution channel that sells primarily to the retailers, other wholesalers or the business users. So, he is not directly into the consumer markets in the sense that he is not directly catering to the ultimate consumer or the direct consumer. Now, when we talk about the wholesalers, one needs to understand what are the possible functions of a wholesaler. Now, wholesaler, the primary thing which he does is selling and promoting. So, means say when we talk about the functions, we have to understand that at the primary level, selling and promoting as a function for the wholesaler would involve him to help the manufacturer in reaching many smaller customers at a lower cost. In addition to this, there would be buying and assortment building activities which will involve the selection of items and building up the assortments which would be required or which would be in demand. There would be a bulk breaking function also which is exercised by the wholesalers. That is, he may be buying the things from the manufacturer in larger quantities, but then would be breaking it into smaller quantities and would be making the smaller quantities available to the retailers. We also have the function being exercised by the wholesaler, which is in the form of warehousing. So, there are instances where the wholesalers would be providing this facility to the manufacturers, that is the place where they can stock their inventory, as a result of which they would be reducing on the customer's inventory cost and risk. Now, when we talk about the other related functions of the wholesalers, it could also be transportation, that is which involves the kind of activity where the wholesaler provides quick delivery due to its proximity to the buyer. Also at times the financing function, where the wholesaler is going to provide some credit facility to the suppliers, or risk bearing, where he would also be assuming say the risk associated with the goods when they are in the distribution phase, or providing you some key marketing insights, the information on the basis of which the manufacturer and the other channel members can possibly benefit and take some concrete decisions. Or the management services and advice, where they would be helping the retailers in say fine tuning their stock, or they would be assisting the retailers in training their sales representatives, and so on and so forth. So as we see that there are multitude of functions and the multitude of activities which are often performed by the wholesalers, and therefore this is a very vital link in the whole distribution channel. So we'd say these are the channel members which assume lot many functions and therefore become very important for the entire distribution network. When we talk about the type of wholesalers, there could be three broad types. One, the merchant wholesalers, second, the agents and the brokers, and the third, the manufacturers, sales branches and offices. Now starting from the merchant wholesalers are the people who are basically doing the full-time activity, in the sense that they also have the title to the goods. So if we more closely look at the merchant wholesalers, we would find that it is the largest group of wholesalers and would include generally full service wholesalers or the limited service wholesalers. So as I stated, a full service wholesaler would actually be handling the full range of services, full range of activities from start to finish. And as we have seen that they perform multiple kind of the functions, so almost everything would be handled by full service wholesalers. As against this, the limited service wholesalers may be performing only a limited set of functions or a specialized kind of functions and services. The second type being the brokers and the agents, and we know that this is a very popular kind of the wholesalers which we come across. They generally charge say 2 to 6% commission on whatever activities they do, but the very fact or the very characteristics which that distinguishes the brokers and agents from say the merchant wholesalers is the fact that they do not have the title to the goods. They do not take the title to the goods, and it is only the facilitating kind of functions, or they help the manufacturers in doing those kind of activities, and they charge a commission for rendering those services. So as we see that the brokers and the agents, they do not take any title. In fact, they perform limited or very few functions, and they specialize either by the customer type or they specialize by the product line. So as you see in some of these sectors, you generally see the brokers and the agents to be very active kind of the wholesalers. Like you see in case of real estate sector, you would find many brokers and the agents. In the life insurance, you would find the agents working for the sector or for the companies. So the brokers, they bring in the buyers and the sellers together, and they also assist in any sort of a negotiation which needs to be built on. Also, these agents, they represent the buyers or the sellers. So there could be the agents or the brokers working on say for the manufacturers in addition to the wholesalers or in addition to the other members in the distribution channel. We also have the manufacturers, sales branches in the offices, where there could be a set of people working directly for the manufacturers. So if we were to understand this type of the wholesaling, we understand that it is a firm where the sellers or the buyers themselves, rather than through the independent wholesalers, they would be through their own net force would be doing these tasks. Now, what are the challenges embedded in wholesaling? We know that there is often a resistance to price increases by the wholesalers. They don't want to go in for those kind of price increases. Even if the manufacturer wants to go in for the price increases, sometimes this is not possible because of wholesalers putting in a resistance to the same. There are often lack of suppliers who would cater to them. The customer's needs are fast changing. So suppose the manufacturer gets in touch with the wholesaler. So by the time the wholesaler will contact the retail and the retail is going to contact the consumers, things would have undergone a change, in the sense that the needs may undergo a change by that time, or there could be something else that the customer would start liking by then. So it's the fast change in the customer needs also make it a little dicey kind of a situation as to whether working through the wholesaler is that good an idea. We also see that adding value by increasing efficiency and effectiveness is something that becomes a challenge when the manufacturer deals with the wholesalers. Coming to retail. Now, students, we know that retailing has assumed significance and has grown in popularity in last few years or so. We have seen that there are multiple retail formats that have come up, and retailing as a sector, or the retail marketing as a area, has grown not only in importance but also in proportion. One is to understand as to who is a retailer. So when we talk about retailer, we know that he is a channel member who is going to sell the goods and services to the individuals for their own ultimate use rather than for resale purposes. He is a person who is in the direct contact with the consumers and therefore constitutes the last final important link in the distribution channel. So the goods from the manufacturer are going to pass to the wholesaler, from wholesaler to the retailer, and retailer to the final consumer. So just before they are reaching to the final consumer, they would be the retailers who would be assisting this kind of a distribution. Now, when we talk about a typical channel of distribution as is depicted here, you would find that the manufacturer would first of all get in touch with the wholesaler, wholesaler will get in touch with the retailer, and retailer is going to get in touch with the final consumer. So it's because of the fact that the retailer is the final member or the final link in the distribution channel, he is having a direct feel and feedback from the market. So it's whether there is a positive feedback or not, what kind of market information is required by the manufacturer to go in for decisions related to modification of the product or any change in the strategy that is called for, is something which can be provided by the retailer, because of the fact that the retailer is directly dealing with the final consumers and therefore has more in-depth knowledge about the consumers and the markets in comparison to the other channel members in the distribution channel. Now, if we talk about the Indian retail industry, we would typically find that initially there used to be the barter system, which was again one form of retail, where the goods were exchanged for goods. Then it followed by say the small outlets, or what we had known as the presence of the kirana stores or the small stores or the specialty stores. It is basically in somewhere in say 90s and post 1995 that the emergence of shopping center came into the picture. And because of the emergence of these kind of big shopping centers or shopping complexes, which also assumed the nature of being the supermarkets or the hypermarkets, the customers started looking for three basic things, that is the value, variety and volume. So you would see that there would be a departmental store, or there would be a superstore or a hypermarket or a shopping mall complex, where eventually you would end up having everything from start to the finish. They are going to provide you multiple kind of products, multiple kind of merchandises, various kind of brands are available in ample quantity. So the consumer is going to look for the value also, the volume also, and the variety and the presence of different kind of brands. Now, with an expansion in the market segment, we know that the retailer has also grown in its importance and has now reached a situation where not only in the urban markets we have seen that the retail formats have undergone a change, even for the rural consumers the formats have changed and the presence of retailer has come in a big way, and the retailers themselves have started looking for the rural markets as the potential areas where they can tap and benefit. when we talk about retailing, we say the best way to understand is to categorize it first. So, the basic classification, or we can say the simplest classification of retailing, could be divided into two broad groups, where we talk about the store retailing and the non-store retailing. Now, as is clear by the nomenclature, when we talk about store retailing, we are talking about a retail presence where there is a physical store. So, there is some physical store which is there, and the store would be acting as a retail outlet for people to come in and shop. Whereas in case of non-store retailing, there won't be a physical store there, but there would be a virtual presence or the online presence, which is another kind of a retail format which has come up in a big way in recent times. So, let us now first of all understand what all can be the non-store retailing options. So, when we talk about non-store retailing, we talk about direct response retailing, as you see in the form of newspapers, telemarketing, catalogs. I am sure students, you must have seen many programs on television where they go in for telemarketing. So, there are programs that talk about various kind of products which are available. You just have to dial a number and you have to place an order for whatever products you want. Or in the newspapers or through the catalogs, the companies provide this kind of an information to the consumers. After having looked at the catalog and the brochure or the leaflets which you find in the newspapers, you can place an order for the goods which you want to have or you want to place an order for. The second kind of retailing which has come up in a big way in the recent times is the online presence of the retailers, which could also be termed as internet retailing. So, all that you can buy through the virtual stores or through the company's own websites would constitute the internet retailing. And we know that this is the retail format which has given a lot of competition to the offline retailers, or say the store based retailers. We also have a system where people can get the goods through the automatic vending machine. Now, these automatic vending machines that roll out the products, like you can get a Coke from the vending machine or some other small items from the vending machines which are installed at strategic places, is another form of the non-store retailing. We also find some of the companies which are into the direct selling, like Amway and the Avon. So, they have their own networking. So, they have their own people who work and they are closely embedded in a network. So, they work more as the brokers and the agents, as we have talked about earlier. So, you take an agency of Amway and Avon, they have a catalog to show to you, and it is through their different kind of a format which works primarily on the basis of chains or the links and the networks, you are able to sell directly. So, they do not work practically as the brokers and the agents, but they are working for the company, and they are the direct sellers. They are like the representatives of these brands. Or the telephone as a method of non-store retailing, where if you want to buy something, you can just dial a number and you can place your order. Now, having understood these non-store retailing options, let us move on to what could be the store retailing options which are available. Now, when we talk about store retailing, we say this is something which is big, which constitutes most of the markets. So, the most of the way in which the retailing is done, barring aside the e-retailing platforms which have recently come up, it is the store retailing which assumes major presence in the market. Now, when we talk about store retailing, the further categorization can be done on various parameters, the first of which could be the form of ownership. So, if we talk about the form of ownership, on that basis we can divide the store retailing into corporate chains, or the independent stores, or the vertical marketing system. Students, we have already addressed the vertical marketing systems as to what they are, where the team work in unison. We also know about the independent stores, and they function and they cater in a store based format and provide the goods to the end user. On the basis of service, we can classify them as the self-service retail outlets or the limited service retailers or the full service retailers. Now, when we talk about self-service, you would normally find that in some of the supermarkets, there is a self-service option. So, the goods are displayed, the goods are there, but the consumers are willing to get the goods on their own or perform their own activities. Like you would be moving inside the store, or you would be moving inside the mall or say a supermarket on your own. You take a trolley and whatever you want to load on that particular trolley, you can do that. There would be a billing counter. You can practically perform all the activities on your own. So, what is going to happen basically in a self-service platform, then it is going to serve the customers who are willing to perform their own locate, compare, select process to save money, like it happens in case of supermarket. So, you are all on your own and you would be locating the goods, you would be comparing the prices and you would be choosing whatever you want, putting it in your trolley, and that would be the end of the complete shopping process. In case of the limited services, it is going to provide you with some sales assistance, like on few counters which require some sort of an assistance, there would be the sales representatives who would be standing there and assisting you with the same. Why this is going to happen? That you need to have services of say someone to assist you with this, because they are more in the line of catering to the shopping goods, where people are looking for variety, people are looking for more information, and therefore there is a person who is going to assist you inside the outlet or inside the retail premises. There could be, as against this, the full service kind of a situation where for each and every need of yours there is a person to help you out. So, the full service kind of a retailer is going to assist the customer in every phase of the shopping process, whether it is in the form of locating the goods or paying for it or making a selection related to it. So, the goods are going to pass on to the customer after lot of deliberation, and therefore they often result in a higher cost, because there are too many people or say a number of people involved in providing this kind of a assistance to you, like what happens in case of departmental stores. On the basis of marketing strategy also, one can go in for classification of the store based retailing. Now, when we talk about on the basis of marketing strategy, we know that these are the retailers who would be crafting their own marketing strategies given their size, given the kind of the merchandise they deal in, giving the kind of customers that come to these stores. So, we say they craft their own marketing strategies, and you can differentiate between one type and the other based on the kind of the marketing strategies which they formulate for themselves. Like you have the specialty stores, and when we talk about specialty stores, we know that these are the stores which run a very narrow or a specialized kind of a product line. So, you won't find everything inside these stores, but you would be finding only the select kind of the items or the specialized kind of the product lines which are available in these stores. So, if you are dealing in a specialized line of product, obviously the marketing strategy also has to be well aligned with that. Or there could be a departmental store which is going to carry a wide variety and assortment of the products for you to choose from. There could be a convenience store which provides you this kind of convenience and therefore is based on that concept, carrying a very limited level of say high turnover merchandise which is going to move very fast. There could be super stores which are going to cater to a large number of assortments which are going to be bought routinely by the consumers, like say for example various kind of food items and even the non-food products and services. Or there could be discount stores which are positioned as discount stores which are based on say the discounting strategies, and they would be working on the lower margins, but the purpose is to sell the merchandise at a lower price so that people buy more and there would be higher volumes that you would be able to earn. Or there could be say factory outlets where the goods are available and they are basically the producers operated stores. Or you have the warehouse clubs which work as say the large godowns or the warehouses where you would be getting the facilities but with less pomp and show and say few frills, and often at say even lower, what we call as the ultra lower prices. So let's say for each one of these, because what they deal with is different, like a specialty store is very different from a convenience store is very different from a factory outlet. So given the fact that they are dealing in a different kind of activity and they are dealing in a different kind of say a merchandise, and they have their goals set which are very different from each other, they need to devise a marketing strategy also which would be very distinct from what the other person is doing, and therefore is the classification based on the marketing strategies. Let us now understand as to what typically differentiates a retailer from say the other channel members. So we say there are certain characteristics which are more suited to a retailer, and therefore is going to affect the retailer more in comparison to any of the other channel members that we have talked about so far. One is the small average sales. Now normally the retailer is going to buy in bulk from the wholesaler. Similarly, the wholesaler is going to buy in bulk from the manufacturer, but the retailer is not going to pass on the goods and services in bulk to the ultimate consumer. Why? Because he is the final link in the distribution channel, and the consumer is going to further break the quantity and buy it. So he caters to the ultimate consumer who are going to buy the unit quantity of the same thing. They are not going to buy in bulk. So if somebody has to buy in bulk, then the market is not the retail market, the market is then the wholesaler market. There are a lot of impulse purchases that happen in case of retailing, and I'm sure we all can relate to this kind of an aspect where we as consumers also go to the market and at times buy things on impulse. So there is a certain section of purchases which fall under the category of being the planned purchases. So probably you make a list and you have been thinking for quite some time about the goods and the services that you would like to buy. But when you reach the market, and typically when you reach a retail outlet or a store or a mall, when you enter there and look around and see all those things, there are many things which you buy on impulse, and therefore the retail has to deal with these impulse purchases. In fact, these impulse purchases are the ones which provide this kind of an opportunity to the retail to sell more quantity and to leverage on this kind of a behavior. There are certain stores also which get popular at times, and the popularity is driven by either their positioning or the popularity is driven by the kind, quality and the variety of merchandise that they stock, and it then becomes an important aspect for the retail stores to take into account the fact that somehow they become popular. It's only because when you become popular, the traffic comes in the store. So let's say it is your popularity with the masses or your popularity in the market which drives traffic into the store. So if you are known as a popular store, you can ensure that there would be good number of footfalls and good number of people who would be flocking your store, and it's only when people come to the store that you can begin with your marketing strategy in terms of selling your product or promoting your product. We say, given these kind of characteristics and the nature of retailing, what can be the typical issues to address? So when we talk about issues to address, the retail has to constantly think about the ways to serve the customers in the best possible manner, at the same time earning a fair, reasonable level of profit to sustain. The second question to address is as to how to stand out in a highly competitive environment where the consumers have a lot of choices to exert. So let's say I know that the consumer has an option to go to n number of stores who probably would be catering to the things which are similar in nature. So there could be the stores which are dealing with a similar kind of the merchandise, but at the same time they have to maintain their edge over the competing rival outlets. So let's say how to do that, and for that the best thing is that you have to understand and you have to identify as a retailer the key aspects which will give you a competitive edge. It could be location, it could be quality of the merchandise, it could be simply your customer service. So what you do by way of serving the customers could be one way in which the retail can differentiate its offerings from the others, or the quality of the offerings could be high. The brands that you stock in your retail store could be, say, something which will give you a competitive edge over the others, or your overall positioning as a premium store could give you that kind of a competitive edge. Another thing which the retailers needs to address is how to grow business while retaining a core of the loyal customer. So there would be some additions coming in, so you have to at the same time widen your base of customers and at the same time retain some of the loyal base of customers. So retailing is all about how you manage the people inside the store, how you take care of your service facilities, how you take care of the merchandise, and how you address these issues so that the direct final link in the form of a retailer with the ultimate consumer is able to meet the requirements of the customer and can act as an active member in the distribution channel in the most effective manner. I am sure students, the lecture on distribution would have benefited your understanding on the distribution aspect. Thank you.
With this note, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much for giving us a productive session. And dear friends, your feedbacks are very, very valuable for us. So do write to us at info.cec@nic.in. Your questions are welcome, and we will try to give answers to your questions when next time Dr. Garima Gupta visits our studio. Keep watching us and keep writing us. We would be meeting again soon. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am.